Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive. Today we're taking a close look at the Polish job market as we head into 2025. We've got two fantastic reports from Target Solutions to help us navigate this landscape. The first one is their Salary Report Poland 2025, which breaks down salary trends by sector, and the second is Salaries Gap Poland West Europe. This one compares Polish wages to what folks are running in Western Europe. It even takes a stab at some predictions for the future. Now, we know that lots of you listening are non-native English speakers, so we're going to be extra careful to speak clearly and keep a nice, moderate pace so you can follow along easily. So buckle up. We're going to cover some really interesting stuff like how Industry 4.0 is shaking things up in manufacturing, the absolute boom in e-commerce. And, of course, that big question is Poland actually catching up to Western Europe when it comes to pay?
Well, kicking things off with that salary report, it really paints a picture of a Polish economy that's on the move. By December 2024, the average gross monthly salary had climbed to 8,821 Polish zloty. Or if you're thinking in euros, that's about 2,090, and that's a jump of almost 10% year on year. And as you might expect, you'll find higher salaries in the major cities like your Warsaw and Krakow. Now, something important to keep in mind is the legally mandated minimum wage for 2025 is 4,666 PLN gross, which works out to roughly 1,106 euros.
It's fascinating to see Poland's economic journey and how it stacks up against other countries that used to be part of that communist bloc. That Salaries Gap report makes some interesting comparisons there, highlighting how these nations are all kind of racing to catch up with their Western European neighbors.
Yeah, Poland's economic transformation, well, it really kicked into gear after the fall of communism back in 1989. But in joining the European Union in 2004, that was a pivotal moment. It opened the floodgates to foreign investment, and that's had a massive impact in shaping the Polish economy we see today. So, yeah, you can't really understand the current salary situation without taking that historical context into account.
Absolutely. So let's zoom in on a few specific sectors that really popped out in that salary report. The legal field, for one, is just exploding with demand for specialized lawyers.
Yeah.
Talking about experts in data privacy, intellectual property, and compliance, all those areas that are getting more and more complex as our digital world keeps evolving.
And, a major force behind that trend is the influx of multinational companies. Lots of them have set up shop in Poland, and they bring with them some pretty sophisticated legal needs that pushes up demand for these specialized lawyers, and naturally that impacts salaries too.
Makes sense. And speaking of salaries, the report says a legal director could be looking at somewhere between 25,500 and 45,000 PLN, while a lawyer might earn between 8,500 and 15,700 PLN. But it's not just about legal knowledge anymore, right? The report also stresses that being tech-savvy and fluent in foreign languages, those are becoming must-haves for any legal professional in Poland with serious ambitions. Absolutely spot on there. The Salaries Gap report really underscores that point to attract the best talent and stay competitive. Polish companies are increasingly hunting for those professionals who can operate smoothly in a globalized environment.
Another sector that really caught my attention was HR. I mean, the role of HR professionals, it's changed so much. Just in the last few years, it's gone way beyond just the admin stuff.
Totally agree. The salary report highlights just how crucial HR is becoming in areas like employee well-being, diversity and inclusion, and then there's managing the whole remote work situation. These have all become top priorities for companies that are serious about attracting and keeping the best talent. And the salary figures reflect that the report says HR directors can command between 20,500 and 35,000 PLN, while HR specialists are typically earning between 7,800 and 11,500 PLN. But one thing that jumps out is how important upskilling is becoming in HR. The things like HR analytics, mastering those digital tools. Those are essential for anyone looking to climb that HR ladder.
It's a pattern we're seeing across a lot of sectors in Poland, this growing need for professionals who can blend those traditional skills with a solid grasp of the latest tech.
And of course, we can't forget about the e-commerce explosion. I mean, platforms like Allegro, they've totally reshaped retail in Poland. It's created this dynamic, fast-growing sector that's hungry for talent.
Yeah, and that hunger is definitely reflected in the salaries. The salary report shows that an e-commerce director could be pulling in between 22,000 and 41,000 PLN, while an e-commerce specialist might earn between 9,300 and 13,000 PLN. Those figures really highlight just how vital e-commerce has become to the Polish economy.
It's not just about selling stuff online either, right? It's this whole ecosystem of jobs that's sprung up around it in logistics, digital marketing, customer service, you name it.
And the Salaries Gap report suggests that this e-commerce boom is actually playing a part in closing that salary gap between Poland and Western Europe even if it's happening gradually.
Which leads us to that million-dollar question. Is Poland really catching up to Western Europe when it comes to how much people are earning? The Salaries Gap report seems to offer a bit of a mixed bag on that front.
Well, there's no doubt Poland has seen some seriously impressive wage growth. But the reality is that gap with Western Europe, it's still pretty significant to really wrap our heads around this. We need to look beyond just the numbers themselves.
So it's not just about the amount on your paycheck, right? It's about what that money can actually buy. Things like the cost of living and purchasing power come into play.
Exactly. The report really hammers home the importance of looking at real wages. Those take into account the impact of inflation. So while salaries in Poland have been rising, the cost of goods and services has been climbing too, meaning those real gains in purchasing power, they haven't been as dramatic as some folks might think.
That's a super important point. It's not just about the number you see on your paycheck, but how far that money actually stretches in your everyday life.
The Salaries Gap report makes a really strong case that if Poland wants to truly close that gap with Western Europe, they need to focus on things that influence not just how much people earn, but the overall quality of life.
That's a really interesting perspective. It's not just about bigger paychecks. It's about creating a society where people can actually thrive and enjoy a good standard of living.
We're going to dig deeper into that idea in part 2 of our deep dive. But for now, let's shift gears and take a closer look at the minimum wage and what it means for workers in Poland. So the minimum wage in Poland, it's gone up quite a bit in recent years, which shows a real commitment to improving the lives of those lower wage earners. But it's still quite a bit lower than what you'd see in many Western European countries. And this difference is a big piece of the puzzle when we're trying to understand why that salary gap between Poland and the West is still there.
The Salaries Gap report uses Germany as an example, pointing out that their higher minimum wage has had kind of mixed results. On the one hand, some people are definitely earning more, but on the other hand, it's been linked to job losses in certain sectors as businesses try to adjust to those increased labor costs.
The report suggests that finding that sweet spot, between supporting workers and keeping things business friendly, that's crucial for any economy to grow in a sustainable way. And as Poland's minimum wage policy continues to evolve in the coming years, it's going to have to navigate those complexities.
It's clear that this whole minimum wage debate, it's not a simple one. There are definitely trade-offs to consider, and the impact on the economy can be pretty multifaceted.
Now we're going to shift our focus to the future, analyzing those predictions for wage growth and exploring whether Poland is on track to close that gap with Western European salary levels in the coming years.
That Salaries Gap Poland-West Europe report offers some really interesting insights into Poland's economic prospects. It suggests that while the country's definitely on a positive trajectory, the pace of that convergence with Western Europe, well, it's going to depend on a few things.
The report predicts that if current trends hold, Polish salaries could reach 75 to 85% of the Western European average by 2035. And that would mean an average annual salary growth of 6 to 8%, which is significantly higher than what's projected for the European Union as a whole. The minimum wage is also expected to keep climbing, potentially exceeding 1,200 euros per month by 2030.
Wow. That would put Poland in a similar bracket to countries like Spain and Portugal when it comes to minimum wage. Sounds like there's definitely room for optimism.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that the pace of growth depends on a few things. What are some of the factors that could either speed things up or, put on the brakes a bit?
Well, continued foreign investment, that's a major factor that could really accelerate wage growth. As more multinational companies set up shop in Poland, they bring with them those higher paying jobs, especially in sectors like IT, finance, and engineering.
The report highlights that those industries could see annual wage increases of up to 10%. It seems like attracting foreign investment is a win-win, good for the Polish economy and good for Polish workers. Right. Are there any other factors working in Poland's favor?
One that might surprise you is the increasing integration of AI and automation. As these technologies become more widespread, they're going to lead to increased productivity and a greater demand for specialized skills, which often come with higher salaries.
It seems kind of counterintuitive that automation, which is often linked to job losses, could actually drive wage growth. Can you explain how that works?
Sure. While automation might replace certain routine tasks, it also creates new opportunities for professionals who can design, implement, and manage these automated systems. And those tend to be higher skilled, higher paying roles. The key is for the workforce to adapt and acquire the skills they need to thrive in a more automated world.
And the report also mentions the rising demand for skilled workers as a key driver of wage growth. Certain sectors in Poland are already facing labor shortages, which forces companies to offer higher wages to attract and keep qualified professionals.
And we can't forget about the role of strong labor unions and effective labor laws. They play a big part in advocating for fair wages and ensuring that workers share in the benefits of economic growth. All of these factors paint a pretty positive picture for wage growth in Poland.
But let's flip the coin for a second. What about the potential downsides? What are some things that could hinder wage growth?
Well, one major risk is the possibility of economic downturns or recessions during times of economic uncertainty. Companies are less likely to invest in their workforce or offer significant wage increases. They're more focused on survival than expansion.
That makes sense. Businesses need to feel confident about the future before they're willing to commit to those higher salaries.
Yeah.
What other factors could kind of rain on Poland's wage growth parade?
Inflation is a major concern. We've already seen how rising inflation can eat away at the purchasing power of wages even when salaries are technically going up. Nominal wage growth doesn't always translate into real improvements in living standards if the cost of goods and services is climbing too.
All right, it's a reminder that we need to look beyond just those numbers on a paycheck and consider the bigger economic picture. Are there any other potential challenges we should be thinking about?
Another concern is the potential for outsourcing. If wages in Poland rise too quickly, some companies might decide it's more cost-effective to move their operations to countries with lower labor costs, places like Ukraine, Vietnam, or other parts of Asia.
So Poland needs to strike that balance, offering competitive wages to attract and retain talent, while also making sure there's still an attractive option for businesses that are worried about costs. What other long-term challenges does Poland face?
Well, one significant challenge is the demographic trend of an aging population. A shrinking workforce could lead to labor shortages and put upward pressure on wages. But it also raises concerns about the long-term sustainability of economic growth and puts a strain on social security systems.
It sounds like Poland's at a bit of a crossroads. They've made huge strides in improving wages and living standards, but they're facing some pretty critical decisions about their future economic path.
And the Salaries Gap report really drives home the point that Poland's ability to close that wage gap with Western Europe hinges on their ability to transition from a low-cost labor economy to a high-value economy.
So what would that transition actually look like? What steps can Poland take to move in that direction?
Well, the report suggests that a key part of this transition involves moving away from relying on low-cost manufacturing and investing more in high-tech industries and innovation. That means fostering a business environment that encourages research and development, supports startups, and attracts investment in cutting-edge technologies.
So essentially, Poland needs to move up the value chain, focusing on producing and exporting more sophisticated goods and services. How can they achieve that?
Increasing productivity through automation and digital transformation is crucial. This can help Poland reduce their reliance on cheap labor while staying competitive on the global stage. Investing in education and upskilling the workforce is also essential, to equip workers with the skills they need to succeed in those higher value industries.
So it's about creating a more dynamic and adaptable labor force that can keep pace with the demands of a rapidly changing global economy. What role does the government play in this transition?
Well, the government needs to create a stable economic and investment climate, by offering a predictable regulatory environment, a skilled workforce, and a stable political system. That's what's going to encourage foreign businesses to invest in Poland and contribute to the country's economic growth.
It sounds like a multifaceted approach is needed,
Yeah.
Requiring collaboration between the government, the private sector, and educational institutions. What about the role of migration in shaping Poland's future wage prospects?
The report touches on the impact of both emigration and immigration. While emigration of Polish workers has declined the influx of foreign workers, particularly from countries like Ukraine, Belarus, and Asian nations, that can help fill labor shortages in certain sectors and contribute to economic growth.
So immigration can actually be beneficial for the Polish economy, but are there any potential downsides to consider?
It's important to make sure that foreign workers are treated fairly and have access to decent working conditions and wages. Otherwise, it could lead to exploitation and create a two-tier labor market, which could ultimately drive down wages for everyone.
That's a crucial point. It's not just about attracting foreign workers. It's about integrating them into Polish society and making sure they have the same rights and protections as Polish citizens. What about the potential for attracting skilled professionals from other EU countries?
As Poland's wages continue to rise, it could become a more attractive destination for highly qualified professionals from other EU countries, especially those who are looking for a lower cost of living without having to sacrifice career opportunities.
That would be a real sign that Poland's becoming a more desirable place to live and work, not just a place to earn a paycheck. What factors would attract these professionals to Poland?
Well, competitive salaries are definitely important, but attracting and retaining highly skilled workers takes more than that. Poland needs to offer a high quality of life, good infrastructure, and a welcoming social environment.
So it's about creating a whole package that makes Poland an attractive place to build a life, not just a career. We've covered a lot of ground in this discussion, analyzing those factors that are influencing wage growth in Poland and the challenges and opportunities the country faces. What are your final thoughts on Poland's journey toward becoming a high-wage economy?
Poland has made remarkable progress in recent decades, but it's at a pivotal moment, the choices made by individuals, businesses, and policymakers in the coming years. Well, those choices are going to determine whether Poland can successfully transition to a high-value economy and bridge that wage gap with Western Europe, or whether it's going to stay stuck in that middle-income bracket.
It's a fascinating and a complex story that we're definitely going to keep following. When we come back for the final part of our deep dive, we'll summarize the key takeaways from these reports and discuss what these trends could mean for workers' businesses and the Polish economy as a whole.
We've looked at the impact of Industry 4.0, the rise of e-commerce, and of course, the ongoing question of whether Poland can close that gap with Western European salary levels. So now it's time to sort of distill everything we've learned. What are the key takeaways from our deep dive?
Yeah, what are the most important things our listeners should remember about the future of wages in Poland?
Well, one of the big takeaways is just how dynamic and full of potential the Polish job market is, especially in those sectors that are really embracing technology and innovation. We're seeing some serious growth in areas like renewable energy, e-commerce, and IP.
Those sectors definitely sound like they offer some really exciting career opportunities and competitive salaries for anyone looking to enter the workforce or maybe make a career change. What other key trends emerged from our analysis?
Well, it's clear that salaries in Poland are heading in one direction up. We've seen impressive growth over the past decade, and that trend is expected to continue, though, of course, there might be some bumps in the road along the way. However, it's important to be realistic about how quickly Poland can reach the same salary levels as Western Europe. That's still a long-term goal.
So while certain high-demand sectors in Poland are getting closer to Western European pay, the overall gap is still there. So yeah, there's reason for optimism, but we need to be realistic about the pace of progress. What will ultimately determine how fast Poland closes that wage gap?
Yeah. The reports point to a few crucial areas. Continued economic stability is absolutely essential. That provides the foundation for sustained wage growth. Attracting foreign investments, particularly from those multinational companies that bring high-paying jobs to Poland. That's another key driver for salary increases.
It sounds like both internal and external forces are shaping the Polish economy. What other factors should we keep an eye on?
Upskilling the workforce is absolutely critical. Poland needs to invest in education and training programs that will give workers the skills they need to succeed in a job market that's changing rapidly. This is especially important as automation and AI transform industries and create a demand for those specialized skills.
Yeah, it's about preparing people not just for the jobs that exist today, but for the jobs of tomorrow. How can Poland stay competitive on a global scale while still pushing for wage growth?
That's a great question. Finding that balance between wage growth and keeping business costs in check, that's the key. Poland needs to remain attractive to businesses that are looking for a skilled workforce and a stable place to invest. But at the same time, they need to ensure that their citizens are benefiting from that economic growth.
It's a delicate balance for sure, requiring some careful thought about the trade-offs involved. As we wrap up this deep dive, what's your final thought for our listeners as they navigate the evolving landscape of the Polish job market?
The reports we've looked at, they offer a really fascinating glimpse into a nation that's going through some major transformations. Poland is working hard to carve out its place in the global economy while improving the lives of its people. The decisions made by individuals, businesses, and policymakers in the years to come, well, those decisions are going to determine whether Poland can successfully transition from a low-cost labor market to a high-value, innovation-driven economy. The future of wages in Poland, and really the country's overall economic trajectory, it all comes down to those crucial choices.
That's a really thought-provoking reminder that economic progress isn't just a straight line. It's a complex web of internal and external factors all playing a part. We encourage you to dive deeper into those insights these reports have offered and really think about what they mean for your own career choices and investment decisions. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the future of salaries in Poland.